The grand jury thought they had something to do with it, but that they did not necessarily do it.
So
And
they
you see
knew
the difference
killer.
there. Maybe they knew the killer. Maybe they put her in a place to be kidnapped, or the ransom note and all that stuff.
Right.
They had something to do with it. That's what the grand jury believed. Now, what's rare here is that after getting that, after going through that process, the DA said, nope, I'm not going to go ahead with the case. John can tell you, that almost never happens.
Okay, why? What happened then?
Once you're impaneling a grand jury, and once you have a jury of peers determine, look at evidence and make a determination that a charge needs to be filed, the DA generally goes with that, and right, generally times 10. Like it's almost never do you see they say, grand jury, we spent all that money, but we're not going to charge.
Why go through the process if they're going to say yes and you're going to say no?
All right, let's talk about that.
Look at all the evidence that they've had. They had over 1,000 pieces of evidence. They tested 500 pieces of evidence. They interviewed 590 people and logged all their findings in a 30,000-page report.
All right, let's continue here. Here's more from the documents. John and Patsy Ramsey did unlawfully, knowingly, and feloniously render assistance to a person with intent to hinder, delay, and prevent the discovery, detention, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of such person for the commission of a crime, knowing the person being assisted has committed and was suspected of the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. So Jane Velez-Mitchell, they believe the Ramseys covered something up here.
Leave the Ramseys alone already.
Jane takes the opposite approach.
We all know that you can get a grand jury to indict a veggie burger, okay? There's a reason why the DA said no. And the fact is that these Keystone cops who investigated this case had their blinders on from the beginning, and they thought they were smarter than they were, and they saw, oh, the ransom note was written on a notepad from the home. Big whoop. Okay, there was unidentified mystery male DNA found in her underpants that does not match any of the Ramseys. Poor Patsy died before she could be officially cleared. The DA ultimately said in 2008 they had nothing to do with it. Leave them alone. It's enough torture to lose a child, much less be living under this umbrella of suspicion for your entire life.
Nancy Grace on the line. Nancy Grace, are you with Jane in that the Ramseys are innocent?
Yes.
Nancy, you with me? All right, we're still trying to get connected with her, but guys, go ahead, because you were wanting to jump in here.
Yeah, I think that Jane's got a good point. The DA sent him a letter saying, you've been exonerated, you're not connected to the evidence. But this grand jury indictment speaks to the idea that even though they didn't match the DNA, that even though they might not have had a direct connection to it, could they have been involved with somebody who did it? And don't forget, if I told you there was a case of a child that died and that child was found in your basement,
Right.
brutally murdered, ransom note coming from your pad, that's suspicious. And this has never been solved. This case has never been solved.
Not only that, the grand jury went through 30,000 pieces of evidence. They spent 13 months. They interviewed dozens of witnesses. It's not like they just pulled this out of thin air.
But still, the DA, he saw all this 14 years ago, and he decided, nope, I'm not going to file. Here's the interview.
I and my prosecution task force believe we do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time.
All right, do we have Nancy Grace? Okay, so Nancy, why wouldn't the DA listen to the grand jury? All right, we're still struggling with that connection. Because you know Nancy Grace always has something to say.
My question to you, Ryan or John or whomever. Do you think that the DA didn't bring charges because they didn't have a killer? They didn't have a killer to connect? I mean, how much of an obstacle was that in this?
To me, and John, I wonder what your opinion is, to me, they felt they didn't have enough to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they don't have enough, if they really feel they don't have enough,
but the
they
grand jury thought they had enough.
But even if the grand jury does it, they can't do it. Think back to the Snyderman case. All of us were surprised. Oh, how come this wasn't a murder case? I talked to that DA, and he said, you know what, in my heart, I didn't feel like I had a case that I could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's his job. That's the DA's job, not to bring that case if they don't think they can prove it.
That is, and this would have taken a long time and been a lot of taxpayer expense.
Right.
And if he didn't have a story he could tell, ultimately a trial lawyer is a storyteller. If he doesn't see that story, it's up to his discretion.
All right, so where do things stand then in the search for JonBenet's killer? Let's go ahead and bring in Anna Cabrera, CNN's correspondent there in Boulder. So, Anna, what are cops telling you there?
The mystery remains. Essentially, Kira, this is an open case, but it's a cold case, meaning there's no active investigation currently happening. Now, the Boulder County spokesperson, a spokesperson for the police department here, tells me that they continue to receive tips, and every time there's a new story, they do get more tips. So she anticipates there will be more that come in today now that this latest news has been broken. But she says, you know, we have not had a credible tip in a very long time, and at this point, they have no new leads. So again, the investigation remains open, but the mystery remains who did it.
Mike, I mean, you're the cop here.
Yeah. No, from the very beginning, I always thought that somebody, either in that family or someone who knew that family, had something to do with this, just because of the evidence, because of the note, because of the Sharpie the note was written with, because she was found there, inconsistent statements. They never could totally eliminate, the mother, Patsy Ramsey, from possibly writing that note. It's just, and investigators, I've talked to investigators out there, they're frustrated also. But until you get some new evidence in this particular case, it's going to remain a cold case. It's a homicide case. There's no statute of limitation. If all of a sudden they find something new and you get a new set of investigators and prosecutors take a look at this and they think they have a case beyond a reasonable doubt, then they go forward. But right now they don't.
You know what else I find interesting about this case? In Colorado, they rarely release the results of a grand jury investigation. I wonder why now. What's the deal with
the
releasing
reporter
this now?
pushed for it. That's why there was a reporter.
But we're not
pushing
seeing much, though.
Yeah.
We're seeing the charges
seeing
of
part
what
of it, not all of
but
it.
we're not seeing what the grand jury saw to bring them to the indictment. We haven't seen that.
All right.